I think the
Oh.
kid was playing a little.
Oh, sure.
Okay, we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to take the roll call? Your mic is not on.
Mike Hobson,
Here.
Marilyn Ertley. Here. Deborah Nelson,
Here.
Don Vanny,
Here.
Jen Schweddy,
Here,
Jessica Stickles,
Here.
Michelle Blythe.
Here.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Question?
Those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, welcome to our last workshop of 2020. First item on our list this evening is an interlocal agreement and memorandum of understanding with the Arlington School District for the school resource officer. Chief Ventura.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Tonight, I am here to answer any questions about the interlocal agreement with the school district. We've had a partnership with the Arlington School District almost consistently for about 20 years. There's been a couple of years we went without due to budget concerns. However, with some changes in COVID, this year's been a little bit different. We haven't had somebody at the school in a while, but I know that as we move towards resuming regular school and with vaccinations coming out today, I think there's a step in the right direction. I think it would be in our city's interest to continue that partnership and that relationship. There is financial consideration for that partnership. The school district does help reimburse our school resource officer while they are on campus and during the school year. And we'd like this to continue. Our last interlocal was from 2017 and it expired at June of 2020. This new interlocal is a little bit different. In the past, we can't do multi-year agreements because some changes in state law. So this new interlocal agreement would be 1 year at a time. But I'll stand for any questions.
I just have a quick one, Jonathan. So when all of the kids were sent home and there wasn't in school, so has that person not been working for the school district since, say, March?
They're a full-time police officer. So yeah, essentially they haven't been doing the day-to-day. They're still a liaison between the department and the school district. They've still worked on some school issues, but they've essentially been reassigned to a patrol shift. So they've been working, taking 911 calls as a normal patrol officer in that interim.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. I see your hand up.
Okay. Well, I was just curious then, budget wise. So we just make sure that, the officer is within our budget. It's fluid, it seems like, because it's if he's working for the school district, then they cover it. But if not, we've got the amount set in our budget, correct? So
normally that's pretty consistent. We know that the school days and the school pays for those days. Of course, with COVID, it has been fluid. So we did have to do a budget amendment to cover that for this year. And we anticipated it in the 2021 budget. So we anticipated that we would pick up more than what we're normally used to. So I feel right now we're pretty safe, just depending on when school is able to go back into session
okay.
after the first year.
Thank you, Paul. That's kind of what I assumed, just wanted to hear it. Thank you.
I think we've also had some salary savings this year because of staffing issues. So to offset the loss of revenue for this year.
Yeah, there was some significant savings that we were used to offset that.
Michelle had her hand up still. Okay, Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think it's great that you're able to go back into the school district and that there's that partnership, especially now. I think that what a wonderful time to make sure that we've got some great representation going into the schools and really inspiring kids and being a positive role model. So I think it's wonderful that we're able to do that again, or that your team is able to do that again.
No, thank you. As a former school resource officer myself, that one of the highlights of my career, and I think it's very valuable experience. Even to this day, I have contact with people that are grown and out of school that remember me from the schools, and it's quite helpful in a lot of things that we do.
Yeah, lasting impact. That's amazing. Thank you. Sorry, Jen.
Oh, that's okay. I just have one other question. I've been reading a lot in the papers about students who are mistreated at home and everything. And I know that normally in all the schools, the counselors know which ones to watch for. I guess I'm asking, is there any way that officer can connect with some of those counselors if they have concern about child abuse with some of those kids that are having to stay home all the time?
Absolutely. The counselors are mandatory reporters. So even going back to the time I was there 15 years ago, when something of a criminal nature was reported to the counselors, they may be required to report it to police. And our officers that are assigned to the school, they have a lot of training in a lot of different areas. There's oftentimes that people are not comfortable going to the school counselor, and they've come to the officers,
Yeah.
So the referrals go both ways. Our officer will frequently refer people to the counselors, and we've had counselors also refer people to the officers. We also work on safety planning and other type of natures where there's really a team approach concept where the counselors, the school, and the officers all work together. And we have a really good history with that.
Okay, I was just concerned since there's no face-to-face too much, and I understand that it's an issue out there. And
yeah, we have had referrals from the schools, even though the students are not attending schools. We've still received some referrals with concerns outside of school, and we handle that as a department.
okay, excellent. Thank you.
Questions for the chief? I think it's a great program. I'm glad to see the school wanted to continue it. I think the students benefit greatly from having our police officers, and it provides a measure of safety for the parents as well.
I agree. Thank you. And I am the next item as well. Do you want me to jump right in?
Oh, yes, that's right. We're not it's a workshop. I was waiting for motion. Sorry. Getting ahead of myself. I'm into next year already. Yes, Chief, go right into the next one.
So the next item on the agenda would be a professional services agreement with Bridge Coordination Services, LLC, for domestic violence coordinator services. You might recall that beginning in 2019, we entered into a contract with Bridge Coordination Services for domestic violence coordination. This was a tremendous add to the departments. In the past, what typically would happen was when we receive a 911 call that could be domestic violence related, an officer would go to the scene, have to sort through what could be years worth of problems within that household and come to a resolution within a couple minutes and move on to the next call. And it's not always the best service that we could be providing to the community. What we've experienced since adding this domestic violence coordinator is a follow-up for every domestic violence report that we take. So even if officers don't have a lot of time to spend on scene, and a lot of people may not be comfortable reporting information to an officer on scene, we've had great experience with a domestic violence coordinator following up with people listed in that report the following day or within the following few days. The domestic violence coordinators provide training for the department and for the officers on changes in laws and things of that nature, better practices on approaching people and building rapport. And the domestic violence coordinators also assist some of these victims in the court process, helping them find resources such as temporary housing and funding for temporary placement, and a whole host of other services. They've even accompanied victims to courts to help them go through the process of obtaining orders and things of that nature. Obviously, COVID has affected our numbers a little bit this year because we don't have those necessarily as many in-person contacts as we did that first year that this service was in. But even despite COVID, our assistance contacts are on par with the first year, year to date. Our phone contacts are more than they were the first year. So this is an area that has potential to potentially grow a little bit as our community grows. But it's been a great asset to the department. I've said before, I don't know how we got along without it prior to having it. And I would encourage us to renew that contract again. I'll stand for questions.
Mike has a question and then Deborah.
Yeah, Chief, I was wondering, would it be helpful if you had somebody similar to this person or this person to go with the officer at the initial contact with a domestic violent household? I guess that's my question. This program here, the officer, this coordinator comes in after the fact and follows up. Would it be helpful if you had someone?
I'm sorry, Councilman, you're cutting out on me.
He muted himself.
Something's going on.
Mike, you might want to check your sound. It got all garbled there and then it went mute.
Yeah, I know, but it cut out on me. Can you hear me now?
I can't hear you now. I apologize. I caught the first half. Would it be helpful to have a domestic violence coordinator somewhat like embedded with officers to respond to those calls?
Exactly.
Yes, it would be helpful on some avenues, but also the other side of that coin is these calls come in any time of day, sometimes 365 days a year. To staff that position full-time, 24 hours a day, to be effective, it doesn't appear to be very practical at this point. We're always looking for those opportunities, and currently working with Marysville, going after a grant for potentially a mental health professional, another mental health type person to be embedded with officers. So this there's a little bit of overlap and there's room for it. So yes, in a perfect world, it would be great to have that service available to us 24 hours a day. But there's a lot of logistics that go into it that make it not necessarily feasible. And sometimes I don't have the numbers in front of me to justify it or not justify it, but I think sometimes we may have success that following day after that person's had some time separated from the other person in that incident, some time to think about what they want to do, some cooling down time. And so I think it could work either way. But yes, if money was no object, it would be great to have that resource available 24 hours a day. But it's just not very practical. And if I put one in a car with an officer, that officer could be tied up on one call, and then the domestic violence call comes out on another part of town. And it wouldn't be very effective to leave that call to go to the other call. So then I'd have to have one with every officer. So now we're talking, 3 of these coordinators on 24 hours a day. So yes, to answer your question, it would be great if we could have that.
If you could just find a way to make it work.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, Deborah.
Well, maybe along the same line, just a different avenue, is I was wondering if, as we continue this ILA, hopefully into the future, I know we're looking at some other things that could be a possibility too, but it just seems to me that it is well worth the money, and possibly an increase in hours above 20 hours a week. And because to me, it seems like a good use of money where it keeps our officers focused where their job and scope of services are, and then puts a professional who is more geared towards the victim in that direction. So I just wanted you to know that I'm supportive of this program and increasing it because I think it's a good tool in the tool belt, both for our officers and our community resources and for the good of our citizens. So I'm glad that we're continuing it.
I appreciate that, and I agree fully with you. I think there will be a time where we would request an increase. We did ask for this time rather than a 1-year budget. We asked for a 2-year ILA to line up with our current biennial agreement. And with that, we included a slight increase for the second year, expecting there might be a slight increase in hours. So I think going forward, we'll continue to look at that.
I just have a quick little catch too that needs to be fixed in the history because it talks about the city and the Arlington School District.
I apologize. That's my typo.
Okay, I figured it was, but
Wendy,
the rest of the year it'll get fixed. I know.
Wendy caught it and have sent the correction to her. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
All right. Consent agenda.
We don't meet again until January 4th, so we'll
I
decide
just
at the end of the meeting.
Just optimistic. Thank you.
Yeah, it never hurts to get a plug in there. Next up, we have an interlocal agreement with Arizona Cooperative Purchasing. Welcome, Debbie.
I do that every time. Hi, thanks for having me. And hope you're all doing well. Tonight, for your consideration and approval, I'd like to present an interlocal agreement with Arizona Cooperative Purchasing Program. I'll be presenting, and any questions that you have, Chief Ventura will be my wingman and he'll be answering questions. So membership to this co-op is free. Therefore, there's no cost associated to the city to be a part of the program, which is great. The specific reason for our interest in this cooperative program is at this time is for the purchase of 3 police vehicles that are budgeted for replacement in 2021. The vendor that the city has used to equip and build police vehicles in the past has an agreement with the dealer who is a member of the co-op, and which allows further discounts in equipping the vehicles for police use. The city of East Wenatchee has used this co-op in the past to procure vehicles, and they've been very pleased with the process and have found the vehicles actually to be of less cost even with this co-op even than with the Washington State purchasing co-op, so, and the state contract. So that's an interesting bonus plus. So I feel very comfortable knowing that other entities have used this and are satisfied with it and have had success. So I would hope that you would consider this and approve it on the next council meeting. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We'll see if any council members have any questions. No, looks like you presented it perfectly. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so next up we have the franchise renewal with Comcast. Brian Terry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Before you this evening for consideration is a renewal of the cable franchise agreement with Comcast. This is for cable TV services within the city of Arlington. James Treefry and I worked on this with Comcast, and Steve provided the final legal review for this agreement. A quick summary of changes from the last agreement that we had with Comcast. They provided an upgraded gross revenue definition, which better defines the clarity in terms and included revenue items. This is a no fiscal impact to the city or change. They updated the term of the agreement from to a 10-year term with a 5-year additional option. The previous franchise had a 5-year with a 5-year additional option. They increased insurance coverage levels for commercial general liability from $2 million, $2 million, $2 million to $5 million, $5 million, $5 million, and commercial automobile liability from $1 million, $2 million, $1 million, $2 million to $1 million, $5 million. We removed the annual report requirement, and they removed the second PEG option and replaced it with a high definition simulcast PEG channel at our request. Per the FCC 621 order, they removed comp service in two city facilities and also removed the option for institutional network. Vincent Bies, who's the manager of government affairs for Comcast in Washington, has willingly accepted our invitation to come to the next council meeting if you'd like to have him present as well. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brian. Jan has a question.
Yes, I understand that we will not be receiving the franchise fees. How much will that impact what we normally would have gotten?
No, we'll still receive 5% franchise fees. That part did not change.
Okay, well, in the monthly report, it said that we were going to lose some of that.
No, the change in that definition was what they thought was taxable. They didn't think that they should be collecting franchise fees on the franchise fee, so they were actually remitting more to us than they were in the past. They asked for that money back during our negotiations, and we told them no, the definition says franchise fees, and so they said, well, we'll let it slide if we can get this language in for the remainder of the next contract.
Okay. My other question is, this is with Comcast, and I know that we have other cable within the city. Does everyone go through this, or how is this different?
Comcast is the only cable television provider in the city of Arlington. We have Dish Network and satellite, as well as streaming channels through your internet, but Comcast is the only official cable television provider in Arlington.
Okay. I guess I thought Verizon and some of the other ones had TV, only Comcast, huh? Okay.
Wave Cable, it has a presence in Arlington, but doesn't provide a cable television service and doesn't have a cable franchise.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian on this? Sounds like great negotiating, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, our next up is a resolution declaring surplus property. Debbie.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor and council members. This time around, I will be presenting for your approval and consideration a surplus resolution declaring surplus on a 2008 International Durastar 4400 chassis and preparing it ready for auction. Chief Kraske will be my wingman on this one. So if you have any questions, he's standing by. But the city uses public surplus auction site, and we've been very successful and would like to do so with this item as well. This particular item has been replaced with a new cabin chassis that was budgeted for replacement in 2020. The 2008 chassis has exceeded its useful life, and we feel at this time the best way to dispose of it would be through public auction to get the best opportunity for higher sale and revenue. So I would like you to consider approving this surplus resolution. Thank you.
Any questions for Debbie or Chief Kraske?
Just a clarification. So that the chassis is in the fire department? I mean, I don't know what it is.
I was confused as well. I had to do a little research and find out how that all works, but it's the cabin chassis. And Dave, maybe you could step in because I know you can explain it better than I can.
Sure. Good evening, council. So when we remount a medic unit, we utilize the same box, so the patient area where we transport the patient, we can utilize that up to 3 or 4 times, and we just remount it onto a new chassis. So we deliver the old unit down to Chehalis to Braun Northwest. They remove the box from the chassis that we're replacing. We bring the chassis back home, and that's what we're surplusing tonight, and then they remount it onto a new unit.
Okay, thank you.
Questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Okay, our next item is Station 48 Change Order Number 1. This is Paul.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Mayor. This is a change order number 1 to the contract for the Fire Station 48 construction. When we developed the plans for Fire Station 48, it was the city's responsibility to provide electrical service to the site. The reason why we did it that way was at the time we had not completed the work with PUD to determine how that power was going to be run, whether we were going to run it up Airport Boulevard or get it from 43rd. What ended up happening was that bringing the power in from 43rd ended up being the best approach for the project because it was contained fairly much on site. For the project, it made sense to ask the contractor for a bid price to put it in, which they provided us. The price was reasonable based on review by the architect and by our own engineer, Jim Kelly. And so we added it to the scope of work for the fire station. This created the first change order in the project. So although it was not part of the base bid for the fire station, it was considered in the overall budget. We knew that it was work that had to be done. We just didn't have it as part of the contract.
I'm sorry, I'm just full of questions tonight. What I would, in the future, and this is a brand new fire station, and I know in Vision 2050, we specifically address electrification and providing charging stations. So when we're putting this in, are we at least going to run the lines? So in the future, when we put in charging stations, that the wiring and everything will be there?
Yeah, there's pathways to the parking lot from the building. So yes, the answer is yes. The pathways are there to be able to add charging stations if we choose to add them.
Okay, because I do know that, like I say, it's in Vision 2050. I made darn gone sure it was in Vision 2050. So we're going to have to address it in the comp plan. And so I just, with this coming up, I thought, you know, if we make sure the wiring's there, because then it won't cost as much when we do put in charging stations. So thank you.
Any other questions?
So there will, this is the work that the contractor will do. There will be also some charges from PUD for the wiring service.
Marilyn?
I just had a question. So this is like half of what we budgeted for. Will there be something else that will take up the rest of the money that we budgeted for?
We will have some wire charges from PUD. We don't have that proposal from them yet, but there'll be some additional. This is the pathways, putting the vaults in and the conduit from the point of connection to the building. PUD will set the transformers and pull the wire. So we will have a wire charge from them. I'll bring that forward as soon as we have it.
We're still good budget wise. I mean, appears to me that
we
we're
anticipated
way under.
this.
Yeah.
But we knew that we were going to have to supply electricity. The reason we did it this way is if with the unknowns, if we would have put it in as a contractor's responsibility, they of course would have bid it higher because there would have been unknowns. So we just waited until we had a firm project before we asked for a quote.
I like it. I just wanted to just question on how we're still under budget.
Any other questions? Okay, our next item is the Airport Commission appointment. And Dave Ryan's not with us tonight, so Paul's going to take this one.
Thank you again. Yes, this is for an appointment to the Airport Commission. Ruth Gonzalez, term expired. She's been on the Airport Commission since 2012. In addition, we had 2 other applicants that we evaluated. Both of the new applicants, one withdrew their application and the other informed us that they were moving or were outside of the city, so they weren't eligible to be on the committee. Looks like Jan and Michelle both were on the interview panel with Ruth. And what I got here is it was a unanimous agreement to reappoint her to the Airport Commission.
So have any questions? Comments? Okay. And the next up, all the rest of our agenda are appointments. So next up is the Citizen Salary Commission appointments. James Treefry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I come before you tonight to review proposed appointments to the Citizen Salary Review Commission first. The Citizen Salary Review Commission is in place by code to set salaries for elected officials, and it conducts that work once every 2 years. The last time the commission met and made a recommendation to council was last year in 2019. We have the reappointment sought for one of the members of that commission, Steve Maish. All the other members of the commission, their terms expired with the exception of Ed Clay, who recently resigned because he's moved out of the area. And so that's the reason for the amount of appointments that we have before you tonight. We are seeking staggered terms consistent with the intent of the adoption of the code so that all of the members don't come off at the same time. We're seeking a full term for Steve Maish, for Heather Logan, who'd served on the commission previously, both as assistant and as an advisor from the city in 2017. For Carla Gastineau, Mandy Kruger for partial terms expiring in April of 2022. Carla is currently the executive director of the Arlington Food Bank. Andy Kruger works for the Chamber of Commerce. And then the final appointment being set is for Noelle Porter. She's new to Arlington, came here in 2019. She has a child that works from home as an IT project manager. It has a degree in organizational management. Excited to kind of dip her toe into municipal city work. With that, I am happy to answer questions that the council might have.
Deborah.
Well, first I want to say that I really appreciate the qualifications of all of the applicants. And several of them spoke to the fact of being committed to being data-driven and gave their background. And I really appreciate that very much and have full confidence in their excellence. And then just kind of a side note is I would like to, and I know, gosh, it was months ago, James, that I emailed you about a question with the Salary Commission and just their process. And so at some point in the coming year, I was wondering if you could maybe review the actual scope of work and workings of the Salary Commission, what they look at, how they do it. I would like them to take a look at the amount of time that council puts in for retreats and also maybe compare what other salary commissions, such as the Snohomish County Salary Commission and some other comparable cities, what their scope of work is, and maybe we could just kind of make sure we're up to date here in Arlington.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple different things at play. Generally, it's good to have more than one public meeting. The last cycle we had, it was difficult to get all of the committee members together to get a quorum. And so we finally got a quorum together for one public meeting in order to be able to pass the required ordinance. And we'll have the information sooner at the beginning part of this year. And we will have an opportunity for council to weigh in. We bring the members of the commission for council for presentation, or we could conduct a public meeting and invite that comment as well, either through public testimony or written testimony. And Zoom will make that a lot easier this time around as well. And I have spoken with some members of the council regarding some of those issues that you bring up, and just the change from the current structure that we have with meetings and having to travel. Now, everybody's on Zoom all the time, so everybody goes to more meetings and has the opportunity to attend more things on behalf of the city. That has changed quite a bit since last time.
Thank you. I want to say too, I think your photograph behind you is something I took many years ago and gave to the city.
It is. Yes.
Making me cold looking at it.
I know, I'm like, whoa, deja vu. I had a broken foot when I hiked out and took that picture, so sorry.
Thank you. No, that's all right.
Michelle, did you have your hand up?
I did. Deborah, I had some of the same questions of James recently, and I provided feedback also that I would really like to understand the process, and then for council to have a voice also with some of the same concerns of, how we rate meetings and, the length of them versus the payment for them. So I think there's a lot of discussion that we definitely would like to have input on. I wasn't on council last time, but I remember that there didn't seem to be a lot of discussion back and forth, and I think that's really important. So.
I appreciate the feedback.
Anyone else? All right, you want to move to the Left Disability Board?
Yeah, so the next and final issue there on the agenda is an appointment to the One Disability Board. So as a reminder to council, we exceeded the 20,000 population cap, and part of the kind of ramifications of that is by statute, we're required to panel our own Left One Disability Board. Currently, the County Left Disability Board adjudicates claims for out-of-pocket costs for medical treatment for our 5 left retirees from police and fire positions. And we solicited input for appointment. The process for this is a little bit different. It doesn't require council confirmation. The mayor appoints 2 members of the city council. She's appointed Michelle Blythe and Don Vanny to a term that expires in December 31st, 2022, and Don Vanny to a term that expires December 31st, 2021. Those staggered terms are required with initial appointment by the code that was adopted by council in August this year. She's appointing me as the administrative or as the secretary to the Left One Disability Board. And then I will conduct an election from the applicants that we have had for retired police and fire, make up the other 2 positions, and then the 4 of them will elect an at-large citizen position sometime in January once the appointments, once the election takes place for those other 2 police and fire representatives. This is more just for information. Happy to answer any questions. It's just kind of follow up to the adoption of that ordinance and to put in the public record the appointments.
James, any questions?
Just a quick one. James, how many people do we have that is in Plan 1?
We have 5 retired Left One retirees at the city.
So once they're no longer there, then we don't need any of this?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right,
thank you all.
Well, do you have any administrative report this evening?
I have a few updates for council I'd like to make. First one is of course, we all know that the restaurants and bars are struggling with the restrictions put in place due to the pandemic. The restaurants, we've had some conversations with them. In addition to the things we've already implemented here at the city to help the businesses out through the COVID, the restaurants had some ideas that might help their sales. One of which would be something to the effect of a 1-block closure of Olympic Avenue, similar to what we do for the street fair. They're proposing something over the holidays, so fairly short term, that would give them an opportunity. So we're working with them. Sarah is on point to take care of that, work with the businesses on that. The chamber has agreed to act as like they do with the street fair, kind of as the nonprofit. So that's in the works. We've also talked to them about the use of the parking strip, similar to it would tie into the ordinance that council approved to allow the use of the sidewalk up against the buildings, and it would just expand into the parking strip. giving them a little bit more room to be able to put tents or tables out where the cars parallel park. And then the other item that we're working on with them is the ability to put temporary tents up on their own property. These would be larger tents. The tents that we use at the street fair are 10 by 10s or 10 by 20s. Those are not normally regulated by fire code. The larger tents over 400 square feet are regulated by fire code. We're working with the building official and the fire marshal now to put in some standards so that businesses, restaurants could get them up fairly quickly and be able to use tents to offset their dining area, you know, with the restrictions of no indoor dining. They do allow tents. So those are some. I tell you that because we're putting this together with Steve's help on an emergency proclamation that'll come to council at the January 4th meeting for confirmation.
So can they put this into place though for the holidays? If
Yeah,
this
we're fast tracking it right now. We're using the event special event process for the street closure. It'll be for a market and outdoor dining. It won't be for a street fair, but it'll be similar setup.
Because if you need us to do something quickly to be of help with this, I'm all on board. I just want you to know that. And is it including the heaters too? Do they need anything special for that?
We would allow them to have heaters in those tents.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. I'm very thankful that you guys are doing this.
We'll do it by emergency proclamation, and then we're copying the guidelines that the city of Spokane put into place that are really effective and really well outlined is about what you can have and what you need to have and stuff. And so we're just trying to get as much information so it's really clear up front. And there's a few few parts of the AMC we have to waive in the emergency ordinance to make it happen. So, but Steve has us ready to go as soon as the businesses are.
Yeah, we're ready when they are.
But boy, that Leavenworth was packed this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it usually is for the Christmas tree lighting.
Yeah, they had tents everywhere, and I mean, there was lines going to every store and business.
The last item that I wanted to mention to council for January 4th is that it's that time of year again where we have to select our representative for the Snohomish County Health Board. Mayor Dan Rankin from Darrington has been on that board for several years and has volunteered to do another year on the board. So that'll be coming forward to council on January 4th also. I think so.
All right.
Thank
Are there
you.
any comments from council members this evening?
Just wishing everybody a Merry Christmas.
We had no public that wished to speak this evening, but you're not over yet. We're going to take you to another room for a quick executive session. Steve?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do need to update the council on some pending and threatened litigation. I would expect this executive session to last approximately 25 minutes.
So you don't have to do anything. You'll be taken to another room by Tony from IT.
Do you want to do the consent agendas?
Do you want to do that before we go to executive session?
That's up to you.
Yep, we're going.
We'll have to do it when we get back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, yeah, do that. Because actually, so I know like there are other people and other people. But she. Oh, sure. Yeah. I just kind of wanted to hear, like, about the COVID, what you guys did. I don't want to do anything. Wendy can do it, she's.
Thank you. So Madam Clerk, we are going to extend for another 10 minutes the executive session.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everything's been in there. Yeah.
All right. So the council is back in session. And our final task this evening is to determine the consent agenda for our January 4th meeting.
Could I give you some numbers to start with? Is that okay? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. 5, 7, 8, and 9.
It's okay with me.
What about 3 and 4 as well, since they're renewals?
3 and 4 as well. Any objections to 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9?
Do you know, I kind of would like to leave 4 on there.
So are we in agreement for 3, 5, 7, 8, and 9?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I guess the chief's early plea didn't work. So council, we'll see you all in 2021, which we're all praying is a better year than 2020. I hope you guys all have happy holidays. Stay safe and healthy.
Well,
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
To adjourn?
Yep, make a motion.
I did.
Oh.
Yes, I just made a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second question.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Aye.
Merry Christmas, everybody.